I never thought I'd be the guy writing about how I got played, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I've been married to Lisa for about 7 years now. She's always been kind of a bossy, bitchy type, hard to please, quick to lie, but she's also pretty damn charming when she wants to be. We had a decent life, nothing too crazy, a nice house, decent jobs. But lately, I'd noticed small signs that something wasn't right. She'd get irritable over nothing, brush off my concerns about her mood swings, and I caught her deleting messages on her phone more frequently than usual. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I could feel something was off. The biggest red flag, though, was the way she started acting whenever I struggled with my computer or tech stuff. I work in finance, so I'm pretty dependent on my laptop. Sometimes I'd call her for help if I was stuck, or she'd claim she couldn't figure out how to do something, like she genuinely didn't understand basic stuff, which was weird because she's not that dumb. But then I noticed her phone kept pinging at odd hours, and she'd get defensive. If I asked about it, she'd say I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, but I had a gut feeling. One day, I decided to check the Wi-Fi logs out of curiosity because I'd been working late, and she had been acting weird during those nights. I'd been suspicious for a while, but I needed proof. So I accessed our router's admin panel and saw something strange. There was a ton of activity from a tech support number I didn't recognize, and it was happening during the nights I was out late at work. I looked closer, and that's when I saw it: remote access logs. Some support tech was controlling my computer during the times Lisa said she was home alone or asleep. I couldn't believe it. I pulled up the logs, and sure enough, he was controlling my computer, moving files, opening messages. He knew my passwords, my bank info, everything. How could she do this? For months she'd been sneaking around, and I never suspected a damn thing. My stomach sank. I felt numb at first, then furious. All the little lies, the dismissals, the fake concern when I was struggling with something. She'd been setting me up for this. I couldn't believe she'd betray me like this, with some tech support guy she met probably through some online forum or maybe even a dating app she'd been hiding. I wasn't naive. I knew women like Lisa could be manipulative, but this was next level. She'd been lying to me, cheating on me, and I had no idea. I kept staring at the logs, trying to process what I was seeing. It was like watching my life unravel right in front of me. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and honestly I started questioning everything. What was real, what was fake, what I'd missed. I decided I had to confront her. I waited for her to come home that night, adrenaline pounding in my ears. When she walked in, I could see the typical bitchy attitude was already there. She looked annoyed, like she knew she'd gotten away with something. I asked her straight up about the nights I saw the activity logs, how she was letting some random tech support guy fix her problems, how she was letting him control my computer and probably steal from me. She blinked, then laughed a bitter, dismissive laugh. "Oh, that. You're so paranoid, Mike." "It's nothing, just some guy helping me set up the internet, like I can't do it myself. You've always been so controlling about my stuff. Maybe you're the one with the real problem here." I lost it right then. How could she be so brazen? She sat there, lying through her teeth, acting like I was the crazy one. I told her I knew everything, about the remote access, the cheating, how she was lying to my face. She just shrugged, told me I was overreacting, that I was insecure. That's when I realized she'd been cheating on me with this tech support guy for months, probably more. She thought she could get away with it because I was too trusting, too clueless about what was really going on behind the scenes. That was the moment I knew I couldn't stay with her anymore. Everything I believed about our marriage was a lie, and I didn't know if I'd ever be able to trust her again. After that confrontation, everything changed. Honestly, I was just in shock for days. Part of me wanted to lash out, scream at her, call her every nasty name I could think of, but another part of me just felt numb. I kept replaying that night over and over, trying to understand how she could betray me like this. She's always been manipulative, but I never thought she'd go this far. The thing that hurt the most was realizing how much I trusted her, how I let my guard down because I genuinely thought we had a good thing. Turns out she'd been sneaking around behind my back for who knows how long with some tech support guy she probably met through a shady forum or maybe an online dating site. The next few days were hell. I couldn't concentrate at work. I was constantly thinking about what I'd seen and what it meant for us. I kept going over those logs, trying to find some way to catch her red-handed again, some proof that I could use. I was also furiously angry. How dare she lie to me, cheat on me, and then have the audacity to act like I was the crazy one. I wanted to confront her again, but I knew she'd just spin some bullshit, deny everything, and gaslight me. I needed a plan, something to make her realize I was going to be played like a fool. One night I decided to do some digging into this tech support guy. I got his name from the logs, let's call him Jake. I ran a background check, and sure enough, the guy wasn't just some legit support tech. He had a long history of shady dealings, multiple fake profiles, and complaints about him manipulating women online. It was obvious he was a creep looking for vulnerable women, and Lisa was just another target. She told me she needed his help because her computer kept crashing or whatever bullshit she threw at me. But now I saw he was controlling her, too, probably under her instruction. She'd been using him as her secret lover, and he'd been using her to get into my personal life. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. I started thinking about all the signs I ignored, the sudden changes in her behavior, the late-night texts, the way she'd get defensive when I asked about her phone. I felt betrayed but also angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. How could I have been so stupid? How could she have lied so convincingly? And yet, I was also starting to feel a strange sense of clarity. I realized I needed to make her pay, not just for cheating on me, but for playing me for a fool, for making me feel like I was crazy when I was just trying to protect what little was left of my dignity. That's when I came up with a plan. It was simple, but cruel in its own way. I decided I'd turn the tables on her, show her what it felt like to be manipulated and betrayed. I started gathering more evidence, screenshots of the logs, copies of her messages, and even some of the dirty details I found through a little digging into Jake's online activity. I wanted her to see that I knew everything. I was going to confront her again, but this time, with everything laid out on the table, raw and unforgiving. She thought she could keep her secret life hidden forever, but I was going to make sure she paid for every lie, every betrayal. Because if she thought she could cheat and lie her way out of this, she'd be sorely mistaken. I was done playing nice. The game was on, and I was ready to fight back. Hard, the more I dug into her things, the more I realized just how deep the betrayal ran. I started pulling up old text messages, looking for anything that could give me more insight into her relationship with Jake. What I found wasn't just the usual flirtatious nonsense. There were explicit conversations, plans to meet, and even some photos she'd sent him when she thought I wasn't looking. I won't lie, seeing those made me feel sick. I'd always known she was bitchy and manipulative, but this was something else. She was actively sneaking around, lying to my face, and apparently having sex with this guy behind my back. I remember the exact moment I decided I'd had enough. I sat her down again, told her I knew everything and that I was done. I was tired of her lies and her games. She rolled her eyes, scoffed at me, called me insecure, said I was paranoid. Her tone was so dismissive, like I didn't matter. That's when I finally decided I'd go for a full exposure. I recorded her reaction, and I told her I was going to make her regret ever crossing me. What I did next was cold, calculated, and brutal. I prepared a dossier, screenshots, chat logs, access to her secret email, everything I'd gathered. I set up a fake account on one of those shady forums Jake used, pretending I was interested in support services. She took the bait immediately. I started chatting with her, pretending I was a new tech support guy, and she fell right into the trap. We arranged a meeting, and I told her I'd come to her house just to confront her face to face. I knew she'd be eager to get rid of her problem, me, without realizing I was setting her up. The night of the meeting, I was nervous but resolved. I parked outside her house, pretending I was just another tech guy there for her. When she opened the door, her face flushed with excitement and a bit of guilt. I pushed the door open and pulled out my phone to record her reaction. I told her I was there to help her fix her issues, but she quickly tried to dismiss me, deny everything. I told her I knew she'd been cheating, that I had all the evidence. She froze for a second, then snapped back with her usual bitchy tone, saying I was crazy and that I was just trying to ruin her. I pressed her on the sexual stuff, the messages, the photos. She started crying, trying to spin some story about how she was stressed, how Jake was just a support specialist, and how I was just overreacting. I didn't buy any of it. I made sure to keep my voice calm but firm. I repeated that I knew everything, that I was done with her games. I told her I'd be posting the evidence online, showing everyone what kind of person she really was, how she lied, cheated, and manipulated. Her bitchy attitude faded for a moment, replaced by pure panic. She begged, said I was crazy, that I didn't understand how hard she had it, how she kept lying because she didn't want to lose everything. But I just looked at her coldly and told her she had no idea what she'd just done, that she'd burned her bridges and I wasn't going to be the fool anymore. That night, I left her standing there, crying and yelling, while I had already made copies of everything. I was furious but also relieved. I finally had some control back. I didn't want to hurt her physically, but I wanted her to know she couldn't get away with this. I wanted her to feel what it was like to be exposed, to be humiliated for her lies. I knew I couldn't undo what she'd done, but I could make her regret ever messing with me. That's when I realized I'd never forgive her, and I'd probably never trust her again. But for now, I was proud I'd finally taken the first step to reclaim my dignity. The fallout was immediate and intense. After I posted the evidence online, just enough to make her look bad but not enough to completely destroy her, I could see her world crumbling. Messages started pouring in from friends, family, and coworkers. Some called her out outright, others just distanced themselves. I don't think she truly understood what I'd done until she saw how exposed she was. Her bitchy attitude turned into outright fury. She called me every name under the sun, accused me of stalking, of inventing lies, of trying to ruin her. She denied everything, refused to admit she'd cheated, and blamed me for projecting all her issues onto her. At first, I felt a rush of power, like I finally had the upper hand. But underneath that, I was just hollow. I'd never wanted to do something like this, but I couldn't take her lies anymore. Honestly, I felt a strange mixture of anger, sadness, and relief. Anger for her betrayal, sadness because I truly believed in us once, and relief because I finally knew the truth. I realized I'd been holding on to a fantasy, thinking we had something real, when all along she'd been lying to me, cheating on me, and manipulating everyone around her. I started questioning all the good times, all the trust I'd given her, and whether I'd ever be able to see her the same way again. The worst part of it all was how callous she became. She started blaming me, saying I was stalking her by digging into her phone, that I was jealous, insecure, and paranoid. She even accused me of trying to control her, an ironic claim considering she'd been secretly controlling my life through Jake the whole time. I watched her turn into a victim, and it was disgusting. I knew she was just trying to save her own skin, but it didn't matter anymore. My trust was completely shattered. I felt like I was walking through a nightmare, not knowing what was real anymore. In those days, I kept thinking about what I should do next. I knew I couldn't stay with her, not after everything. I started packing my stuff, figuring out how to leave without making a scene. I also thought about confronting her one last time, to tell her that I knew she'd been lying from the start, that she'd been cheating and manipulating me for months. But eventually, I decided not to give her that satisfaction. I just took what I needed, left a note explaining I was done, and walked out. I didn't want to hear her crying or begging or blaming me anymore. I knew I had to cut all ties and start rebuilding my life from scratch. Looking back now, I realize how much this changed me. I used to be naive, trusting, maybe a little too easygoing. Now I'm much more cautious about who I trust and how I handle my privacy. I learned that people can hide a lot behind a pretty face and a manipulative attitude. Women like Lisa, they're good at lying, at making you feel like everything is your fault, even when they're the ones in the wrong. I also learned that sometimes you have to fight fire with fire, Exposing her was the only way to make her see she couldn't run from the truth forever. And honestly, I'm glad I did it. It's not about revenge, really. It's about finally standing up for myself and not let her get away with lying and cheating anymore. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I won't let anyone treat me that way again. Trust is fragile, and once it's broken, it's almost impossible to fix. But at least now, I've learned to be more careful, more guarded. And I've learned that sometimes, you have to take matters into your own hands to protect yourself, even if it means exposing the worst parts of someone you once loved. After I left her that night, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. The house was silent, the kind of silence that hits you right in the chest, and I realized I'd been living in a kind of fog. I had spent so long trusting her, believing in our marriage that I never thought she'd betray me this badly. The guilt, the anger, the betrayal, it all hit me in waves. I kept replaying everything, trying to understand how I'd missed all the signs, how I'd been so blind to her manipulation. But deep down, I knew I couldn't stay stuck in that past. I had to move forward, even if it was just one step at a time. In the days that followed, I threw myself into restoring some sense of normalcy. I changed my passwords, secured my bank accounts, and made sure she had no way to access my stuff anymore. I also started seeing a therapist, something I'd never done before. But I needed someone to talk to, someone who could help me process what just happened. It was tough. I'd always been a pretty resilient guy, but this was a blow I wasn't prepared for. Trusting again seemed impossible, and the thought of her lying and cheating behind my back made me sick. Still, I knew I had to heal for myself. But even as I tried to move on, I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to do one last thing, that I had to make sure she understood the full scope of what she'd lost. I knew she was trying to spin her story, acting like I was the crazy one, the jealous one, the controlling one. I refused to let her rewrite what happened. So I compiled everything, screenshots, logs, messages, everything I'd found, and made a detailed report. I wanted her to understand that her lies and manipulations had consequences. I sent it to her family, her friends, and even a few coworkers. I didn't want to carry all this alone anymore. She needed to face the facts, no matter how humiliating it was for her. The response was predictable. Some people were furious with her, others just looked at her differently. Her phone kept ringing with angry calls, her social media was flooded with comments exposing her, and I could see her slipping further into her own version of hell. It was almost poetic. She'd been so bitchy, so dismissive, so full of herself, and now she was the one scrambling to save what little reputation she had left. I didn't feel sorry for her. Honestly, I felt a strange sense of closure. I'd taken back control, and that's what mattered. In the end, I realized that I'd been lucky in a twisted way. I caught her before she completely destroyed my life. The pain still lingers, don't get me wrong, but I'm starting to see a way out of this mess. I've learned a lot about trust, manipulation, and how dangerous people can be when they're hiding their true selves. I've also learned that sometimes you need to take matters into your own hands, no matter how uncomfortable or messy it gets, to protect yourself. I don't regret exposing her, not anymore. It was the wake-up call I needed to stop being naive and start standing up for myself. Now I'm focused on rebuilding. I've started therapy, I've cut off all contact with her, and I'm trying to move past the anger and betrayal. The scars will stay, I know that. But I also know I've grown stronger from this experience. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that the truth, no matter how painful, has to come out. And sometimes, the only way to get your life back is to face the storm head-on, no matter how much it hurts. Looking back now, I realize that this whole nightmare changed me more than I ever expected. I used to trust easily, believe in the best in people, but that's gone now. Trust is like a fragile glass, and once it shatters, it's nearly impossible to glue back together. Lisa's betrayal showed me just how far some people are willing to go to hide their lies, how they'll manipulate, cheat, and lie just to get what they want. She thought she was clever, thought she could get away with her game forever. But in the end, her own actions caught up with her. What I learned from all this is simple but brutal. Never ignore your gut. I had so many little signs, her dismissiveness, her lying about stuff I could verify, the late-night texts. I ignored them, convinced I was overthinking or being paranoid. Turns out I was just too trusting. I also learned that sometimes you have to take control, expose the truth, even if it burns bridges or makes you look like the bad guy. It's about reclaiming your dignity. I didn't want to be a victim, and I refused to let her rewrite everything just to save her own ass. The emotional toll has been heavy, no doubt about it. There are moments when I feel angry, so furious I want to break something. Other times I just feel empty, like I lost part of myself in this mess. But I also feel stronger. I know now what to look out for, what red flags to heed, and how important it is to keep my boundaries firm. I've learned not to be so naive about people, especially those who seem to manipulate their way into your life with charm and lies. Most importantly, I've come to accept that some things just can't be fixed: relationships, trust, innocence. But what I can do is move forward better, wiser, more cautious. I won't let this define me, but I will use it as a lesson. Lisa's betrayal is a chapter I won't forget, but it's also a warning. Now I focus on healing, on trusting myself again, and on rebuilding my life without her. I don't regret the truth coming out, even if it hurts. In fact, I'm grateful for it. Because honesty, no matter how painful, sets you free. And I owe myself at least that much.